now, finally, some 4K UHD reviews for the people who are on my channel for the movie content. But if you're here for my Beatles content, stick around too. But I just saw the review of this from the guy who does the channel Films at Home. The guy is very knowledgeable. I love the guy. We might not agree on everything, but overall, I love his channel, and I have to agree with him on this. Criterion just issued Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull from 1980 on 4K UHD disc. And oh my God, I have to say, without Dolby Vision and just HDR10 grading on it, this is one of the best, if not the best, that Criterion has done so far in their move to 4K UHD and releasing select titles on 4K UHD. This is probably so far one of my favorite releases of the year. There's only one hiccup in this that I will complain about, and it's very petty, but it's important to me. But first off, Raging Bull, I first saw on VHS, summer of 1989. I had just gotten into Martin Scorsese. That summer, I rented Taxi Driver, I rented Mean Streets, I rented The Last Temptation of Christ, and then everybody was telling me, who was older than me, have you seen Raging Bull? Have you seen Raging Bull? And I saw Raging Bull on, every list for Martin Scorsese. So finally I rented Raging Bull. And I was blown away. I was blown away by Robert De Niro's performance. I was blown away by Joe Pesci's performance. I was blown away by the cinematography, the sound design done by Frank Warner. And I was blown away by the raw honesty in the film. Blown away by this interpretation of Jake LaMotta, who's not a likable character. I will concede that. He's not a likable character. But towards the end of the film, I couldn't help but empathize with him, which is the most important thing, empathy. I don't agree with what this guy did. But at the end of the film, when he's in prison, solitary confinement, and faced with only a wall to get his demons out, I just couldn't help but feel sorry for the guy and the emotional damage he brought on himself. It's not just about boxing. The boxing scenes in this film are some of the best and surrealistic. I remember somebody a long time ago had said, the boxing scenes are not realistic. And I was like, that's the point. They're not realistic. They are very hallucinogenic. It's as if you've been in the ring for a long time getting hit in the head. So the ring changes sizes. You hear weird things happening on the soundtrack. It's not just the audience going, yay! You hear distorted animal noises. You hear a distorted drum. You hear things happen in slow motion, and then they speed the camera up again. It's very intense. 50 days of shooting for what amounts to 10 minutes of boxing scenes in the whole film. But let's talk about this transfer. And let me just read here from the Criterion Collection about this transfer section. Raging Bull is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1:8:5, approved by director Martin Scorsese. This new master was created in 4K resolution on a laser graphics director film scanner from the 35mm original camera negative. And Scorsese and his editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, personally approved the transfer. I have seen Raging Bull on VHS. I've seen it on DVD, the original DVD edition and the 2005 edition. I've bought the Blu-ray that came out in, I believe it was 2010. And I have to say, this is the closest thing I am going to get to seeing this film on a 35mm film print. This is if you are looking at a new 35mm film print. Now, it's black and white, but this is black and white in 1980. So you are dealing with a much more newer film negative for the time than what you would have gotten in 1939 for, let's say, Frank Capra's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is also a very good 4K UHD disc from Sony Home Pictures. And this is a beautiful negative. It does have a color sequence in it of home movies, but this is like watching it in the movie theater again. Probably if you were there the day it came out in 1980, or probably better than what you would have seen in 1980. The sound design in the film, I am happy to say, I love new Dolby Atmos mixes of classic films when they're done right. I love new DTS:X immersive sound mixes when they're done right. And usually Universal is good for that. But Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker, I found out, insisted they go back to the original 2.0 stereo surround track. Now in 2005, for the DVD that came out, they did a new 5.1 mix, as well as a new stereo mix. And the 5.1 mix during that time, it was okay. They added they didn't add any new sound effects. The sound effects they were directional, so they would pan them. But they added a bit of reverb to it that I didn't quite like. And over the years, I missed that original 2.0 stereo track. It's an interesting sound mix. The dialogue scenes are basically mono, but the ambiance in the scenes, the ambiance in the room during the fight that happens in the Copacabana lounge with Joe Pesci and his friends who are mobsters, when people are shouting at each other, it sounds like you are in the room with them. Then when you go to the boxing scenes, it's a different sound design altogether. Crowd sounds happen all around you, distorted animal noises. It's flash bulbs going off at random. It's a totally different sound design. So the 2.0 stereo surround track is the way to go on this, and I'm happy they did that. I'm not upset. I know some people were complaining about, why couldn't they do an Atmos track? Well, I don't think you want to hear a boxer's mouth guard fly across the room overhead in height channels. Why would you want that? The original 2.0 stereo mix that came out in 1980 is the way to go here. And just to let you know here, they add some more information about that. The original 2.0 surround soundtrack was remastered from the original 35mm 3-track magnetic track. Please be sure to enable Dolby Pro Logic decoding on your receiver to properly play the 2.0 surround soundtrack. So what people don't realize when they have these 2.0 or 2.1 tracks is that there is surround sound information folded down into the two channels. So if you have a system that can decode it in surround, you will get a full surround track, and I'm happy. It sounds like the way I first heard this. It sounds like the way I heard it on VHS, the first mono VHS tape I had of it, and then the stereo VHS that came out, and then the way I heard it when I saw it on Laserdisc back in the day. The Criterion Collection Laserdisc that came out in 1991, I believe. And I gotta say, Criterion just did a masterful job on this. It looks great. I have watched it several times already, and I cannot recommend this enough. This Criterion Collection 4K UHD disc, director approved by Marty of Raging Bull. I can't recommend this enough. The gentleman who is at the Films at Home channel, I don't know his name by heart, but I have to agree with him. This is one of my favorite releases of the year. I cannot praise this enough. Thank you, Criterion. Thank you for everybody involved. So far, this is my favorite release of the year. And I will be back with more, and I'll talk to you soon.